Hi, and welcome to Turra Company, the mother-daughter podcast about everything. Our mission is to make herstory, a.k.a. history, not by going viral, but by doing something that has never been done before in our family. Whether we have 2 listeners or 2 million listeners, we are bringing you our very best, and hopefully we are learning and growing together in the process. Now let's enter into the Turra Company experience and create herstory, a.k.a. history together. Welcome to Turra Company. Yay, new episode coming at ya.
I don't even know what day it is.
I don't either.
You don't need to know what day it is. It's the day to record. So all you need to know is today is a recording day.
Got it. Noted.
Nice. Had that long weekend and now you don't know what to do with yourself.
Literally.
Yeah. Thanksgiving was nice though.
Oh.
Nice food. I don't think that
I don't know. Was it nice? I feel like
it wasn't nice.
I mean, you kind of overcooked the dressing. I overcooked my mac and cheese.
What?
Why did you put me on blast with my food?
Couple of things.
I didn't know
I'll be
about
honest
this.
with you, I wasn't impressed with my mac and cheese. You know me. I can say.
Yeah, I feel like you missed an ingredient or two.
You
was missing.
keep saying that, but I really don't know what you mean by that.
Maybe the recipe that you're using might be missing some stuff.
I just really think that I overcooked it. I think that's what it.
Yeah, because it wasn't creamy.
I overcooked it.
I think it's just because I'm a cheese sauce kind of person.
She like the cheesy, saucy kind.
Yeah.
That's
my thing.
what's happening.
It just tasted like some dry noodles.
And
with
the
some cheese.
dressing, for your information, I did leave it in the
for
oven.
the people out there, we're not talking about salad dressing. We are not talking about salad dressing.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that because I was reading an article yesterday online and it was saying, because I think Gabrielle Union was on Good Morning America or something, and they were doing like this quiz thing, and she was saying something about dressing. Something happened and it was about dressing. They was like, dressing goes on salad, something. And I was like, I don't even know if we should tell this story, but Ariel's boyfriend came to pick her up on Thanksgiving. Yeah. You weren't here, so you can't tell the story because you weren't in the room.
Okay.
It was while he was waiting on you to get ready. And so, he was like, well, what did you cook? So I'm telling him, and if you guys don't know, he's Filipino, right? So I'm telling him, I'm like, yeah, we cook greens,
mac and cheese,
and he was good. And then I said, oh, dressing. And then he looked, and Chelsi looked at him.
I saw it because I had just had this conversation with one of my coworkers. I knew what that face looked like, so I saw him, and I said, John, do you think we're talking about like salad dressing? And he was like, yeah. I was gonna say, like, what kind of salad dressing?
Right. He said he was gonna say, what kind of salad are y'all having that this dressing is going? Woo, I did not know people was out there not knowing what dressing was. Yeah. So for us, for African American, because guess what? We got people listening all over the world. So let's educate the world right now. For black people, because I call myself black. For black people, what we do is we don't call the stuff that you put in the turkey stuffing, because we don't put ours in the turkey.
Well, and it's actually different. Stuffing is made with bread, like with breadcrumbs. Dressing is made with cornbread.
Yes. Yeah, and it just tastes better. Hello, because that kind that's made with bread, it's so mushy to me. Anyway, it's a preference. We let y'all live y'all life. However you live in your life, live it. If you're doing stuffing, stuff it, baby. If you're doing dressing, it's not salad dressing, it's dressing.
Oh, now I thought about it. What was missing from the dressing this year? Mushrooms.
Girl. And you know what? Did you see the mushrooms in the refrigerator?
I so did.
I was so mad when I opened the refrigerator yesterday. I was like, dang, I knew I forgot something. It just was a lot going on. I had to cook all the dishes. I don't usually cook all the dishes. So listen, it was good. To me, it was good. Even though we thought stuff was overcooked. At least nothing was undercooked.
Yeah, that's true. And nothing was burnt. And you know what was really good this year that I didn't think, that you kind of gave me a warning about? Them yams. Them yams were delicious.
Yeah.
Usually your yams be a little hard. Be a little undercooked.
What is happening with this episode? Because the name of the episode is not talk about Turra's cooking for Thanksgiving.
I'm just saying, like, whatever you did this time, I
think it was the pot that I used. Because I used that ceramic, like
I
think it was oven. That. And it, to me, Yeah, I don't want to talk about it, but obviously the yams are good because there was none left for the next day. So I don't know if I ain't make enough or what. But anyway, Chelsi says my yams be hard, y'all. I might take that out. I might take that out of the... Because you know stuff that I don't like, I take out. Anyway, let's get to today's episode. Enough lollygagging. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. We did, even though stuff was overcooked, but we still ate it. And we did good. And we even got a treat. When Ariel came back from John's house, she brought us all this Filipino fare that we would never have had.
Let me tell y'all. The Filipino spaghetti? Oh, y'all done did something with that. Y'all done did something.
Give us the recipe. We want to know.
That was delicious.
Is it only...
If y'all thought there was some left, there's not. I'm so
I know.
sorry.
But listen, if the Filipinos don't mind the African Americans having their recipe, shoot it on over because we won't mind fixing it from now on again. Okay, let's get started for real. People know all this lollygagging is just too much.
They like the lollygagging.
Right, exactly.
I think they do. They get to know us through the lollygagging. Now people all over the world are going to know that my yams sometimes can be hard.
Can be a little hard. Can
Can
be a little undercooked.
That means they're undercooked.
Can be a little undercooked.
Well, I think it's the way I pile them in the pot. But anyway, we're going to work on it. That's how you get better. You just keep working on it. Mm-hmm. So today's episode, we are doing part 2. You got it. To Stinkin Thinkin, Cognitive Distortions. Now, I caught something when I was in the editing room, a.k.a. my bed. Last episode. That I kept saying instead of cognitive distortions, I kept
disorders?
saying, I kept saying disorders. I was like, So I'm going to make sure I get it right. It's not disorders. It's cognitive distortions. My goodness. I kept listening to that. I was like, you saying the wrong word, girl. That's how I talk to myself when I'm editing the shows, just so y'all know.
Got it.
So this is part 2. We're going to go. Remember, if you haven't listened to the first one, I always feel like I got to preach every episode, but I'm going to keep doing it. If you haven't listened to Stinkin Thinkin Cognitive Distortions Part 1, then stop right now, shut this one off, and go back because you need that. There's a total of 15 distortions. Again, we're going to cite our source that we got from Mad Maryland. It's a vlog, mad.org, and we will, again, cite our source in the show notes as well. So if you want to look at the article and read it yourself, you're definitely welcome to do so. So there's 15 cognitive distortions. And they received them, this vlog received them from Positive Psychology, and they illustrated these 15 I almost did it again.
Distortions?
Yes.
There we go.
They illustrated these 15 distortions. So last episode, we went through 8 of them.
I think so. Yeah, we went through
we went through 8 of them last episode. We're not going to recap because you need to go listen.
Right, exactly.
That's me today. I'm being forceful. Go listen. So let's get into today's 7, because today we have some more that are going to, just make you a better person. So the first one we have is catastrophizing. This is expecting the worst case scenario and minimizing the positive. Now, I don't suffer from this one myself because I always think the positive. I'm really good at that, I think. I think of the positive. But I do know some folks that this affects.
Yeah.
You know something because you just gave me the eye roll.
Because I know a few people like that, and a lot of people that do that to me, I've also noticed don't plan. Like I've noticed like the people who are like, oh my gosh, the world is coming to an end, everything is crumbling. Those are the same people that are just like, they have no like objective necessarily. They just do things. They're like, I'm gonna wing it. Like those are the same people who are just like, instead of being like, I'm gonna do this, this, and this, they're like, I'm gonna like see if it works out. And then the second it doesn't work out, they're like, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world. And I'm like, if you would have taken like 2 seconds, because planning doesn't it's not that big.
How do you do anything without a plan?
Sometimes you just gotta say, oh, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions.
Literally, a failure to plan is planning to fail people.
That's a good one.
I got it from somewhere. I don't know where. But
and what did Chelsi say? I want to hear what she said again.
If it isn't the consequences of my own actions.
What does that mean? if it isn't the consequences? Are you asking that question of
No,
yourself?
it's like a sentence where you're like, oh my gosh, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions.
Oh, okay. Now I got it. Because the way you were saying it, I felt like something was missing.
And also, to Chelsea's point of also, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions, a lot of the people who I think catastrophicize are also the kinds of people.
It's a big word.
It is.
I thought I was
going.
I thought I was gonna flub it, but I did good. Catastrophizing.
It is. That is a $10
That's
word.
one. Well, that's when you got to do catastrophizing.
What is this? Hooked
Oh,
on phonics?
catastrophic.
Just stop.
Catastrophizing.
That gives me PTSD.
Phizing.
Not the hooked on phonics.
And she's snorting and everything. I'm get it together. I don't know what's wrong. Y'all been off this long weekend. Y'all done had too much rest. Y'all too silly.
Anyways, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions, those are also the same people. The people who catastrophize are also the ones that are like, bad things can't happen to me. And then as soon as like the bad thing happens, they're like, oh my God, it's the
Oh my God.
the consequences of my own actions.
And they minimize the positive. Like something positive could have. I have been around people that have planned an event or done a thing, and then yes, some things went wrong. Like how we were just talking about Thanksgiving. Yes, my dressing was a little in the oven too long. I want to clean that up. I want to word it like that.
Okay, got it.
And then my yams were. To me, they were too soft because they were like mashing up.
I loved it.
Obviously. So you're always going to find something. There's always a way to find the positive because like I thought that those were negatives, but Chelsi thought that they like the yams was positive. Like there was a positive to her. And guess what? To me with the dressing, the positive was put some gravy on it that'll loosen it up.
Oh, speaking of the dressing, John said it was good.
Oh, he liked it.
I forgot to tell you.
Yeah. Good for him. Because that was his first time.
And you know, and I told him if he didn't like the mac and cheese, don't say nothing. And the fact that you didn't say if he liked the mac and cheese or not.
He didn't say nothing.
Yeah.
He didn't say
because it
nothing
was.
about the mac and cheese.
Yeah, try it again. Just let's make it again.
Yeah, we'll make it. I'll make it again.
A smaller batch, and I think it's going to be fire. Okay. Because Thanksgiving, we going to get off of this Thanksgiving, I swear. But Thanksgiving it's very stressful because you're cooking like 20 different meals in one day where you normally wouldn't do that. So.
Quick side note, my favorite Thanksgiving we ever had was the one we had at the house where we didn't have Thanksgiving food, but we had like meatloaf and stuff like that.
You know what? And that's the worst Thanksgiving in my head. I remember when Mom brought that to me saying that we was like, I said, what? Meatloaf? I was like,
And Ariel thought, so see, listen, you catastrophized it. And Ariel found the positive.
Sure
so
I think I
win.
made a whole thing. I was like, why are we having meatloaf? And you were like, because that's what I want. I was like,
and then there was a year that you made like individual Cornish hens. Like,
oh, I remember that.
We should do that one again.
No, we should not.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Listen, we already got the plan for next Thanksgiving. We going out.
We're not going to be cooking every year. Next year, we're going to go out because this is Vegas. Stuff be open. We'll go out. So anyway, let's get back to the show because we are not focused. Catastrophizing. Chelsi, do you have something about catastrophizing?
I don't think I do. I can't think.
You don't know people who expect the worst case scenario and they minimize the positive?
You know, I do.
And how do you deal with that?
I'm one of those ones where you can only do it around me for so long, like be negative and not focus on the positives.
And what do you do though? How do you handle it when somebody around you is negative?
I just try to list all the positive things in the situation, but then it just gets to a point where I feel like I'm fighting with the person,
right?
To let them see the positives, and then it's gonna get to a point where it's like, okay, well, I'm not gonna keep going back and forth with you. It's either you see it or you don't,
right?
You know.
Yeah, that makes sense. I get that. And sometimes because these are cognitive distortions, let's talk about that a little bit. Sometimes, and I realized this on the last show, and I'm going to say it again on this show, cognitive distortions are deep sometimes because you've grown up seeing this stuff. And it's not something that you developed on your own. Sometimes you've seen your mother doing it, your father doing it, and it's so home to you. It feels so comfortable. It's a comfort level within you that if you try to make a positive, it doesn't feel comfortable. So that making it a negative or expecting the worst, like you might have grew up in a house where your mother expected the worst. So now you expect the worst. So when somebody tries to bring it to your attention, you're like, what are you talking about? This feels at home to me. So that's why we go over these things, because these are things that are embedded in your brain that you have to work consciously to get them out. So that's a good one, catastrophizing. Now, let's talk about heaven's reward fallacy. This one is expecting self-sacrifice to be rewarded. Baby, if I got $1 for every person I know that does this. And I'm going to tell you, listen, I am a believer. I am a church girl myself. So when I say this, please, church people, do not come for me. But I find this a lot in the church because people do things that they feel like they should be rewarded. I'm going to give y'all an example. I know some people who be like, oh, I don't drink. I never have taken a drink. I would never do that. It's not supposed to be done. Jesus made wine at the wedding. And I'm going to leave that right there.
He turned water into wine.
Right.
So
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's the same party. Talking about the same party. That's the same party. So I'm not saying if you choose not to drink, that is your business. That is your business. I ain't going against it. But don't be coming up to me acting like you holier than me because you don't. Okay?
Right.
That's the only thing I'm going to say about that. It's something that everybody does something, right? So I know people that do stuff for people and be like, I did this for her and she ain't even, well, because you didn't do it for her. The moment you do something for somebody, you did that for yourself. And if you're not thinking of it like that, that's where you going wrong, because nobody owes you nothing. I think I've said this before. And if I haven't, I'm going to say it now. Don't nobody owe you nothing. If you choose to do something for somebody, you better know in your brain, in your heart, that you chose to do it for that person. And if that person never says thank you, if they never are excited about you doing it, that's on you. And you need to know how to make your next move. Either if you did it for them, then you're going to probably want to not do it again. But if you did it for yourself, then you'll be like, okay, I thanked myself. Let's move on. But I see this a lot where people be like, oh, I was supposed to go here, but I dropped my plans and I went here with this person and they weren't even grateful. It's easy to fall into that trap because sometimes you do feel that people owe you something.
And yeah, and they feel like they deserve payment. And there's something that I want that you said that I think is interesting. And it's the part about doing something for somebody and versus doing something for yourself. So one of the things that I've come in contact with a lot, and this is on like the receiving end of things, you can say, like, people will say, oh, I did this for you, but you didn't really do it for me. You did it for what you think I should have. Like, you think you know better than me, or you think you know best for me. There's a difference between, like, because what you're saying is like doing something for somebody's validation and versus doing it for your own validation, if I'm understanding that correct.
That is correct.
Right. Because some people will be like, I did this for them. And then the second part of that sentence is because this is how I think they should live. And I think that that's also a part of this heaven's fallacy, is they're like, they think they know best for people a lot of the times, because they'll be like, oh, well, I did this and it makes their life better. When in all actuality, you were just thinking about yourself and what you think will make their life better. If that makes sense.
I would think that that's a B to my A, because my A is saying, I didn't go to the club last night. I came over to your house and we drank wine because you had a bad day.
Right.
I did that for you. And then when you have the choice to come console me or go to the club, you went to the club. So now I'm mad.
Right. Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm agreeing with you on.
Yeah.
That.
So absolutely. Listen, if you start doing things for yourself, then all of that will go away. The heaven's reward fallacy will go away. Self-sacrifice is just that. You sacrificed yourself to that moment. And if you expect the person that you self-sacrificed yourself to be grateful, they're not always going to be grateful. And that's where you have to come to terms with it. Did you do it for them? Did you do it to be good and big in their eyes? Or did you do it for yourself, that this was something that you wanted to do? Let me contribute this and let me do it.
Right. And that's a good thing. That's like actually a good thing.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think of when I hear the heavens fallacy is, I think that comes a lot that and people pleasing kind of go hand in hand.
Yes, agreed.
Because a lot of, like, even in myself, like in my past self, I used to see myself be like, oh, well, I did this for this person. They should be thanking me, or they should be, you know, grateful to me, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I should be getting all of this recognition, blah, 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 blah. And that's when you're kind of your, what's the word I'm looking for? Your motives are
Misplaced.
Yes, misplaced. Your motives are misplaced.
Motives, yeah.
And one of the things that I also think with people who have this whole heavens fallacy thing is, I see it a lot in kind of people that I went to college with, not necessarily like my friend group, but people that I had classes with. And they're the people that are like, oh, I did this study guide, or I'm doing this study group, or I'm doing this, you know, so that they'll think that it makes them like look better to the other students and makes them seem favorable to like the teacher's aide and stuff like that. And I also see it a lot with people who are like trying to get a job, because they're like, oh, I did all of this. I did this. I sacrificed all of my time. Like, I knew, not necessarily was friends with, but I would see people who were just like, oh my gosh, I spent 8 hours studying on a Saturday instead of going out and partying. That's going to impact me so much more in my career. No, it's not. Yeah. It's genuinely not. Like, you could have, like, if you needed those extra 8 hours, sure, fine, you know, do it. But if you're just doing the 8 hours of studying just to say you studied for 8 hours, who does that help? Like, that doesn't help your future employer. That barely helps you, unless it's like, you know, you needed, like I said, unless you needed the extra help or you needed the extra study, it doesn't help anybody. So like this whole idea of, oh, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to sacrifice basically my happiness. Basically, I'm going to sacrifice the thing that makes me happy to look better or to get a better outcome, so to speak. It doesn't necessarily work that way.
No. And if you're doing it because your motives are wrong. Anytime your motives are in the wrong place, it's never going to come out right. If your motives are to be a good person and be a good student and study 8 hours, then no matter what grade you get, you'll be okay with it. But when you think that you've done something so big and high and get a bad grade, then that's when you're going to be messed up. So how about always being right? This one, I got my hand up. Y'all can't see it.
Come on. We all know.
Listen.
We all know.
Let me tell y'all how this works for me. So let's talk about what it is first, and then I'll tell you how it plays out in my life. Always being right. Being wrong is unacceptable. Being right supersedes everything. So I don't have it to this degree, but I will say this. If I know about something, if I know that I know that I know about something, I'm coming to you with it. Now, if I don't know about it, I will be silent, but I know a lot of things. So I'm not quiet a lot of times. So I will shut up when I don't know about it. But if I know about it, I'm going to be right about it. But let me say this. When I was reading this, it says being wrong is unacceptable. I don't have it to that degree because it's not unacceptable to me. Like, people think that around me, people who talk to me, and when we have our discussions about right and wrong or whatever, they think that I think it's unacceptable. It's not that. Because if you listen, when you think you know a thing and somebody has the information to challenge you with, then you're an idiot if you don't listen to that information to get educated. And I'm not an idiot. But most people think, oh, she always wants to be right, so I'm not going to say nothing to her. I'm just going to let her be right. And sometimes you've done the person a disservice because you have the power to correct them and say, well, I'm going to stop you right there. It's really this. Or you're right, but let me expand upon that. And so that gives you even more to go on. But most people, when they think you always want to be right, they'd be like, I'm not even going to tackle that with you because you just want to be right. And it's like, no, it's not that being wrong is unacceptable for me because I can't be wrong. I have been wrong a lot. That's how you learn. So a lot of people, this is mine. I really have to work on this distortion because I do have a thing where I like to be right. I do. But I also will listen. If you have data that backs up something different, I'm open to listening to that. But most of the people I talk to, they don't be right a lot. They don't. So it's easy for me to be right. Think about it. I'm not socializing with rocket scientists and brain surgeons. Like, when I worked in different industries where I had really smart, like book smart people working with me, I was never like arguing with them about being right. I would be sitting there like soaking it all in. Mm-hmm. That's how I learned more things, right? Because I'm listening to them and I'm like, wow, I never knew that. That is so amazing. So,
you know what you just made me think of?
What?
This one makes me think about how I personally don't think I get along well with people who like to be right on a technicality.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Like I've come across a lot of people who I like to say are Amelia Bedelius. Like they'll take a rule they'll take a standard and they'll kind of manipulate it in a way that makes it just right enough to be passing. Like it'll be just accurate enough to pass to like not follow through, which to me is like the worst way to be, because if you're taking all of that effort to just be right on a technicality, you could have just done the right thing in the first place. Like you're wasting your energy to me. Right. But I've seen a lot of people that are like, oh well, you know, from my perspective it's blah, 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 blah. But yeah, that may be technically true, but also in like the same vein, like from a different perspective, it could be wrong. I always use the example of looking at like a number that's on the ground. Is it a 6 from your perspective or is it a 9 from your perspective?
Right.
Right. Because because technically there is one actual right answer. Whoever wrote the number on the ground may have intended it to be a 6, but from your perspective, it's a 9. Right. There's the openness to interpretation. Yeah. Right. So I don't particularly like when people when things are open to interpretation and use it to their advantage.
I totally get that, because there are times like, okay, so I'm about to talk about some stubborn old men. Get ready, old men. If we got some old men listening, I'm sorry. But sometimes that little niche of society, y'all be pressing on nerves. So I found that older men, you can have a conversation with them and you'll say what you're saying. And you're not even saying it to be right. You just matter-of-factly talking about it. You could be talking about a soft drink or something and they'll be like, but no, did you know it was this and this and this and that and that and that? And you'll be like,
we were born kings and queens.
Well, it's something in that little generation. I don't know if people was making them feel wrong sometimes, but it's like they always want to be right. And you'll even tell them, no, that's been like, I remember a conversation you guys were saying that you had one time where you were talking to your, I'm gonna have to call him out, your granddad. And he was talking about having a stroller that converted.
Oh my gosh, yes, I remember this conversation.
What did
it do? Was when one of my cousins was born. She was probably about like 9 months old, and you know, she was getting dropped off at my grandparents' house, and my grandfather goes, oh, he was like, they need to invent, like, I think I'm going to invent a car seat where I can just take, like, so that I don't have to take the baby out of the car seat and put it into the stroller. You just take the car seat out of the car and put it into this attachment. And I'm listening. And I'm like,
don't those exist?
I'm like, Grandpa, I think those exist. And he's like, no, like, you just take the car seat out of the car and you just put. I said, I understand the concept. I said, there is no discrepancy about what you're saying. I said, but I think those already exist.
And see, that's the thing. You knew that it existed, right, but you didn't want to hurt his feelings. So you was coming humbly and you was like, I think it already exists.
So then Dad comes in and, you know, Dad's like, what are you guys talking about? I was like, well, Grandpa is saying that he wants to invent a car seat that you just take out of the car and then put into the stroller attachment. I said, but I'm trying to tell him that those already exist. And then Dad goes, yeah, Dad, maybe if you would have invented that when I was a baby, then maybe you would have had something. But, you know, because he was like, so then like the mom comes in who's dropping off her daughter, and, you know, my grandfather says it, and she goes, that's what she has. She was like,
so four people have told this man, see, that's what I'm talking about.
This car seat already exists.
4 people then talk. And so how did it end? Did he not believe all 4 people?
No, he did. It finally
But
came
4
around.
people had to exhaust themselves to tell him that this thing already existed. It existed. I'm trying to think. No, I don't think it existed when you guys were little. I don't think that it existed. I know, yeah, but I do know that it exists now. But that's what I'm talking about. Like, why do 4 people got to tell you it exists before you believe that it exists? Check yourself before you wreck yourself, because that's crazy. 4 people should not have to tell you. The first person who told you should have been like, for real? And these days, Google is a wonderful thing.
Oh my, so free.
Google will stop
free
all
99
arguments
too.
Because you could have Googled it and showed it to him, but he probably still wouldn't have believed it.
And I think that's what I was trying to do. Like, while I was talking him through it,
yeah,
I think I got on my phone and I was like, no, I was like, they exist.
Dang, and even your daddy tried to tell him.
Yeah.
Dang, what was? I wonder what was, if we could have him on the show, what he would say was the driving force that made him finally settle down and believe it.
I don't know.
I also want to point out to the listeners who don't know our grandfather. Our grandfather is like actually like a really smart engineer type person, which is why he even got that thought of like, I should invent this in the first place. He's not just like somebody who's like just, you know, a random person that was like, I'm gonna make this, and he's like, this is like, that's what he does for a living, or at least while he was working before he retired. Like that was his thing. Like that was what he did. Like
He just was a little late on this one.
Right. He was just a tiny bit late on the uptick.
I lost it when Dad was like, if you would have maybe did that when I was a kid, then maybe you would have had some.
Maybe it would have been $1 million family by now. But yeah.
Greco who? But, you know, instead.
It'd have been right.
Right.
Oh, my God. That is too funny. We love you, though.
We do.
Cornelius, Big Neil, as they call him, because my Neil, fun fact, is Little Neil, but he's the bigger of the 2. So, yeah, go figure on that. So, anyway, always being right. So, we love you, Big Neil, but we just had to call you out on the show.
Just a little bit.
Okay, so the next one is personalization. Always assuming self-responsible.
Can we elaborate on this one? I don't know. I think I'm a little lost on this one.
Well, I think it's some people out there that they just be like something could have happened across the world and they'd be like, oh my God, it's because I didn't do this that happened.
Oh.
Like, that's why it probably doesn't impact you. That's
it doesn't.
Why, yeah.
That one doesn't. But you know who it does impact? Because this is a thing that I've, not recently, but I've always watched documentaries about.
Yeah.
People who have like OCD, like that's something that affects them. They think they have their rituals and their routines because they think that their brain tricks them into thinking like, you know, this distortion teaches them that if they don't do this routine or ritual, something bad will happen. So,
and they will be responsible because they didn't do their things.
Right. A lot of these, from what I'm realizing, are things that are commonly associated with mental health issues.
Oh, absolutely.
But in extreme circumstances of this.
Because I have a little bit of each of them from time to time, but
yeah, not extreme like levels of it.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that like a lot of these tactics are a lot of probably like warning signs or like red flags of people who have some sort of mental health issue. Not necessarily an issue, but some sort of mental health struggle that they might encounter.
Right. And if you do find yourself struggling or getting stressed out or just having these to the extreme case, there's nothing wrong with finding, as Ariel always say, a paid professional.
A paid professional.
Yeah, because we're not that. We just go through the stuff as we're working on it.
Pay me enough, I might be a professional.
A paid licensed
Right.
professional.
Yeah,
I am a licensed professional, just not in what you would want.
No.
To
We're not talking about licensed and facials. If you want to come
And
get a facial and laser, come to Chelsi. But seek out a paid professional because you know what? It's nothing wrong with that, you know?
You see a doctor regularly who
So why not talk your problems out?
right.
Some people use us to talk their problems out. Some people say that we are their motivator and we love it.
Oh, I love that.
We love
to hear it.
All right. So personalization, this panel, that one isn't a big one for us. So then we got jumping to conclusions. Makes assumptions based on little evidence.
I feel like I do this.
I do this.
I do this.
Yeah.
I do this too. Because my brain
I'll
will
be Elastigirl and just jumping, reaching.
So let me ask you this. When you jump, do you confront a person or do you just What do you do? Or do you just let it play over in your mind?
I let it play over in my hand, and then, or if anything, like I kind of like gossip about it.
You'll gossip about it to somebody else?
To somebody else.
And then they'll talk you down and say,
right, and be
I think you're jumping to conclusions.
They're like, I don't think that's what it is. And I'm like, no, no.
I'm on to something. Like Chelsi, when she goes on her little spirals, because I've seen her do it, it's interesting to like see. Like if Chelsi were to channel her jumping to conclusions and like low-key crazy energy into something like, I don't know, like being like a doctor or like a scientist, we'd probably have a cure for cancer by this point, because the way...
Oh, you went all the way there? That's kind of weird.
It's... No, because I don't think you understand how
I do.
Chelsi's mind is
when I'm digging, I dig deep.
She does.
I dig deep.
And it's interesting to... I would love to see like a mind map of your brain to see how...
You'd get lost.
To see how that would like...
You'd get lost.
Yeah, but jumping to conclusions, I'm big on this one. This one, my brain, I'll be like, did she mean to say this? Or did she mean to say that? And then I'll just overthink it and be like, but wait a minute. But she did say. And I will sit there and be just stifled for a minute or two.
Just stuck.
Trying to figure out, did she know that she said that to me and how it landed? Like, and the person then went on about their business 3 times, and I'm still sitting there stuck. So this one is crazy because I do it, but I try to work on it. Like I try to say, okay, whatever it is, whatever. Because I get to this point where I'm like, if the person didn't straight out say it, then they didn't say it, you know? Because you have to like... That's a way to me to combat this one, jumping to conclusions, because I think we all do it. I think a lot of people do. I ain't going to say it all, but I know I do it quite a bit where, if you on the phone with somebody and they'll say something and you'll be like, you be so stuck, you ain't even hear the rest of the conversation.
Right.
Because you're like, wait a minute. You just said blah, blah, blah. And it depends on what kind of mood I'm in, because sometimes I'll stop you and be like, wait a minute, did you mean to say... Because otherwise I won't be able to go forward. And they'll be like, no, I was saying this. And I'll be like, oh, okay, my bad. Because I thought you were saying this or that.
Personally, I'm not going to say I'm the opposite, because I don't necessarily, I don't jump to conclusions initially. Like somebody could say something to me and like maybe they mean it a different way, but my brain immediately will be like, they're not talking about me. And then I'll just move on. And then like maybe I'll think about it a little bit more. And I'll be like, well, maybe they were talking about me. And then I'll just be like, it's not that big of a deal. I don't know why that is a thing like that. Because it's always if I do jump to conclusions, it's delayed. Like it's never immediate. Like it's usually something where I'm like,
You have to think about it later.
Yeah, and it'd be taking me like a week, and then like after that, I can't bring it up anymore because what do I look like coming to you a week later and being like, remember when you said that one sentence?
Please don't do it. Please don't do it
exactly.
because you look crazy.
Exactly. So it's not worth it.
Just rehearse what you're gonna do the next time they bring it up, if they bring it up. That's
if
what
it happens again, and that's usually what happens. Usually, I'll be like, oh, they're not talking about me, or they're not referring to me, and then it won't show. I'll be like thinking it over, and then it won't show up again. Be like, oh, I was right. They weren't thinking about me.
Right.
But.
And most of the time, they're not. Mm-hmm. All right. So we're good on that one. Jumping to conclusions. Blaming.
The blame game.
Assumes everyone else is at fault. Let me think about this one.
What's that for?
Y'all do be at fault.
Do we?
A lot of the time.
I don't.
My name is Bennett, and I ain't in it. That's between the two of you because
I don't think I assume everyone else is at fault.
I don't think so either.
Chelsi be trying to put me out here. What you think?
I think Chelsi be the one that be blaming people.
Right. Well, I didn't do the dishes, or I didn't do this, and I didn't do that because
Chelsi is the one who plays the blame game. Because she's the one who usually is just like, well, I didn't do it because you didn't do this, or I didn't do this.
Oh, I was waiting on you to do that. I thought you was gonna do this first, and then I was gonna do that.
Right.
So yeah. Put your hand up for this one.
Right. Blame, that's you.
Yeah, because I don't blame people. I ain't got time for that. Because you know how I make my moves. If I want something done, if I ask you to do it and you don't do it, I'm just going to jump up and do it. I'm not going to blame you. I'm just going to do it. And then I'm going to be like, you better do it next time.
Right. One thing I have noticed real quick about people who place the blame is they're always looking for somebody to blame and not just blame like a situation. Like if it rains outside, right? And you don't have an umbrella and your hair gets wet, you can't blame the person you're with on the fact that your hair got wet. You can blame the rain and that's fine. Like if you blame a situation for something, that's fine. But if you're blaming another person who has maybe nothing to do with it, or even if they do have something to do with it, they might have had some sort of reason. Blaming another person doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't serve you very well.
But this one says you assume everyone else is at fault.
No.
Like you never take responsibility
for nothing like that. No,
but they out there though.
Clearly, they're in this room.
Oh no, I don't think everyone
Sorry, that was
is
always
aggressive.
at
fault.
Sorry, I didn't mean that.
I do be taking the blame sometimes,
but a lot of times you place the blame. I'm just saying, we just established that, so it's not nothing new. Global labeling, extreme generalization.
That's not one.
Are these liar traits? Because global labeling, I can see that as a liar. Because a liar is the person who I think would be doing extreme generalization. Because you don't want to get too technical. Because you don't want people to catch you. So you be real general around the facts.
Right. Just general, like, tiptoeing.
Well, he said, who is he? She said, who is she? Don't be talking to me in pronouns. I cannot stand it when people be like he. Who is he? Who is she? If you're talking to me in he's and she's and they's and them's, I'm going to ask, who is she? Who is he? Who is they? Who is them? Because I need names.
Here's the bit that I am not a fan of. There's a difference to me between what people saying, well, when I was there, this is what I saw. Because you're taking accountability for the things that you did, you saw, you smelled, whatever it was. But when somebody says, well, this person was the last one who touched it, and I don't know anything about that.
But you know that they touched it.
Right. And they're like, well, when I saw them do this, or
First of all, that person is going to get some stitches because they snitching.
Right. And
dry snitching.
And I think another thing with this global generalization is the same people who come
global labeling. I'm sorry. It's global labeling, extreme generalization.
Global labeling is, I'm trying to get out of this habit myself personally, is when people walk into a situation where they're just like, oh, this is this is like the worst day ever. Or like, this is the worst thing to ever happen. You're putting this label on this situation as it being, quote unquote, the worst. Yeah. But in all actuality, it might just be your shoes untied and you tripped on yourself. Like that's not.
So that's that one from last show, emotional reasoning. I feel it, therefore it must be true.
Well, yeah, true. Yeah. And I think a lot of these are kind of interconnected too, because a lot of them not necessarily are redundant, but they more so needle point into like something more specific. Yes. And with that generalization, I've encountered quite a few people that'll just be like, today's going to be so bad because I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I missed my alarm and then I just look like a mess.
The spiraling,
yes. And a lot of that is just a general spiral.
Don't talk to me if you're that type of person because I can't take it.
Yeah. Same.
When you're talking to me, I want some, hey there, today is a good day. We're going to, even if it's not, like there are a lot of days that I wake up that they're not good days in my brain. But I have to step my feet onto the floor and I have to say, you know what? Today is a good day. Today is going to be a good day. And sometimes when I say that, it'd be the worst day I ever had in my life.
But well,
I have had that. I have had days where I start off be like, this is going to be a great day. This is going to happen. That is going to happen. This is going to happen. And everything that I've said, the opposite happens. But I still keep that mentality of what I first said. It's going to come out good. It's going to come out good.
Right.
You'll be surprised how much that changes your life. Like, it'll change, even though stuff is just piling up on you, you'll be like, but today is going to be a good day. Today is going to be a good day.
One of the things that I always say is someone will ask me, like, how am I doing? And I'll just be like, it's not there yet, but it's getting there.
Yeah.
Like, it's a working progress. Yeah. I say all of that. And I also have, like, a small funny story. Where I work, I share an office, right? And in my office, this is going to sound really bad, but you'll see why I'm saying how I can relate this in a second. But we have a rule in my physical office that it's not that we can't be too positive, we have to be open to the possibility that things are going to go wrong, and we have to prepare for those things. Like, we can't say, oh, this is going to go perfectly. This is going to go exactly to the plan, because that's not true. It may not. But the problem, the counter to that is but we'll make it better. Does that make sense?
Yep. Makes total sense. Yeah, I get it. I just don't understand why y'all got to say that negativity in the beginning.
Chelsi, do you struggle with this?
No.
Okay. Chelsi is perfect in every way. She don't have none of these distortions.
Yep. So let's keep it
other than the blame one.
Right. The one she got though is big one, so she might as well not have as many.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's our show for today. That was part 2 of the cognitive distortions. If you haven't listened to the first one, make sure you go listen to that one, then listen to this one. And that'll make up the list of the different cognitive distortions that we have. Thank you for listening. Go follow us on our social medias and YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We appreciate you. We will see you on the next episode.
Okay, bye, people.
Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. We look forward to you joining us on the next episode. Until then, be inspired and enlightened.